Welcome to the Bourbon Talk Show, the ABV Network's original YouTube series where we interview some of the most interesting people from the world of bourbon. Today on the show, we'll be talking to Bernie Lubbers of Heaven Hill and Lenny Eckstein of Deerhammer Distilling. My name is McNew. Please join me in welcoming my co-host for the evening, Steve Akley.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Hey.
We do have a live studio audience, and this is exciting. So, McNew, we always do a little segment called Bourbon News before we get started. And of course, I want to welcome our guests. We'll have Bernie Lubbers here today. We've got Lenny Eckstein here. So we've got a fun crew, and should be a great show. Really looking forward to what these gentlemen have to say this evening. I also want to, Justine's got a key role here. She's producer Justine. So if you ever come and you're part of the live show, Justine has a role kind of behind the scenes, but she does help us out and also does some things behind the scenes too, mailings, and helps us promote the show and that. So I just want to acknowledge Justine for the work that she does behind the scenes.
Justine kind of keeps us running and in order. So
yes, yeah. We need that for sure.
We do.
So McNew, we always talk about three topics. The first one is just the first show. The first show was a big success. I got a lot of positive feedback about it. And I always say it's kind of funny because we are a big media company. We get a lot of downloads. We get over 50,000 downloads just for one of our shows and over 75,000 for the total of all the shows that we do. So a month. And to start out, it's humbling to start out on the video side where you literally have no subscribers. You have no people watching your videos. And you're like, okay, now we want to get into this. But I did tell you that last week we had 101 people subscribe to the channel. And after this, we're now up to, we're up to 127. So I'm going to set a goal for us by next week. 160. Do you think we can get to 160? That's 33.
I want to do better and do 175.
Okay. All right. We'll check back in next week and see how we did. So yes. So that's exciting. And like I said, even, Brent Elliott was on. And really big news for us, Four Roses liked what we did. I heard from their PR people and they said, could we put a link to that in the Four Roses newsletter that'll go out April 9th? So we'll record again before then, but the day after we record the next time, it'll actually be in the Four Roses newsletter with a link to the actual show, which I think is really cool. And it should be big for us. So
that's super cool. I'm glad they're sharing it as well. Which means we did a good job. We don't just think we did a good job. We did a good job.
That's good. That's good. Yes. Our self-assessment was great. We were off the charts, but it's good to hear others.
Pluses from us.
Yes. So of course, what you guys could do is, like the shows when you watch them, please subscribe to the Bourbon Sasquatch channel, share it, let other people know. That helps out. And of course, comments when you're watching the videos, that also helps new people find the show. It puts us up in the algorithms, which really help. All right, topic number 2, McNew, is about you. I'm very proud of you because you came on to the network. Yes, I am, because you came on and you were a bourbon fan. And, and when we started doing projects, you would shadow me. You would be with me on the Bourbon Daily. And then when we did other shows, you'd be on that. But now you're doing your own stuff and it's really cool. You're doing the Try It series, which is our virtual bourbon event. You've got your own podcast that recently Bernie, we're going to be talking to tonight. He was just a guest on there. And now you're starting another one too. Tell the audience about the new podcast that you'll have coming out next week as well.
Yeah, so on next Tuesday, forget what date that is, I think it's April 6th, I have a new podcast coming out called Bottle Kills and Last Meals. And this came about because I hoard bottles with literally nothing left in them, and it makes my husband crazy. So I'm like, I got to get rid of these bottles. And then I came across this article about serial killers' last meals. And I'm like, yes. It rhymed in my head for some reason. It's Bottle Kills and Last Meals. So I'm going to kill a bottle and tell you about some last meals.
Okay. All right. And are these last meals, are they fascinating? Or is it just fascinating?
Very interesting. Okay. So I do give a little bit of history about that person on death row, what their crimes were, what their life was like, and then their last meal. It's a real short show. So I will say hours of research went into researching and actually writing it, and it took me 4 minutes to record. So there's short little clips on a Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, that's fun. It's a neat idea, and I know true crime is, for some reason, it's huge, and we're not really in that realm. So it's kind of cool that you bring a little bit of that to what we do. So I like it. So should be good. Tune in next Tuesday, ABV Network channel. So if you're not listening, you can either listen to it on there, which is available anywhere you find podcasts, or you can go to the ABV Network website, click on shows, and there's a drop down, and Bottle Kills and Last Meals is on there. So you can check it out one of those two ways.
Yes.
All right. Number 3, McNew, I sent you a list here. It's from Wine Searcher. So they published what are the 10 most bottles searched for on their website. So apparently this is kind of like a secondary type thing. I don't know how this is legal or what. I have no idea. I guess they assume they're not involved in it, but they track then what people are searching for to buy in terms of bottles. And then they also track what the sale price is. So did you look at that? There's some crazy numbers on there.
So the bottles themselves did not surprise me. And I don't know why the prices did, but some of them are astronomical where I'm like, I wouldn't pay that, but I know people are.
Yeah. Another crazy thing is 9 of them were Buffalo Trace products. So it's a list of 10, 9 of them are Buffalo Trace products. There was one on there that wasn't, it was a 4 Roses limited edition. So the yearly one that they do, that average price, that was like ranked number 8 or something like that. Average price, $507. Crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
That's because Harlan keeps it all in his garage.
I think he might.
Come on, Harlan, open the garage up. Let some out.
Let us in. We want some. Yeah.
Is there like a secret password we need or something? Let us know. We're happy to come by it.
Yeah. Blanton's $144. I'm looking at some of the other ones.
Honestly, that's not crazy for a Blanton's. I've seen people pay $200 or $300 for them. $144. Still acceptable in my world, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the only one that I thought was acceptable in my world was the Eagle Rare, $51. I don't think that's bad. That's not even double the price. That's not bad. I mean, if you're really looking for one, you can't find it. I think $51 is a fair price. So
yeah. Not bad at all.
But the just the Eagle Rare, the BTAC one, $2,073. So
crazy.
I'm not paying $2,000 for any bottles. I don't have
my
the money.
unicorn bottle is that William LaRue Weller, and for $2,000, it's going to say a unicorn for me.
Yes, yeah. I agree with you. So there's what's going on in the world of bourbon news, our personal as well as industry bourbon news. All right, it is now time for our first guest. And our first guest goes by the title of brand ambassador for Heaven Hill, but I don't know, that's almost a disservice. He's much more than that. I feel like he's a brand ambassador for the entire industry. He's such a great guy. He makes himself so available to bourbon fans. It always feels like, hey, I'm a bourbon fan, but it feels like one of us, with Bernie being in there and the job that he's got. So I'm just a big fan of everything that he does. So it's my pleasure to introduce everyone to Mr. Bernie Lubbers.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks, McNew. It's good to virtually see you all again.
Absolutely. So we've got a lot to talk about, but before we kind of get into what you're doing now, let's go back. You were a comedian for over 20 years. Tell us about that life on the road and what you did. And I don't know, were you friends with any other comedians that we might know, that type of thing?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So in 1985, I was working at a local bank. So I did the usual transition of being a loan officer and went to a comedian. In 1985, it was, it takes good timing to be a comic. That's when the comedy world was just exploding, and they need all these little clubs and were opening up all over the country, and little one-nighters and week-long one-night runs were going and everything. So yeah, I worked with Drew Carey there. I worked with Howie Mandel and Steve Harvey, and we called it our class. That was our graduating class. If we were kind of working the same circuits, the Punchline circuits out of Atlanta, or the Comedy Zone circuits out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Comedy Caravan circuit out of Louisville, Kentucky, which was one of the biggest booking agents in the country for this area, believe it or not. And then I worked for the Ice House out in Pasadena through their booking agency. And so, yeah, I got to work with a lot of great people, Bill Engvall, folks like that. And when you work with a comic, you work with them all week. So it's almost like a retreat. And a lot of times, you stay in the same condo. So it's either a 2 or 3 bedroom condo. So you're living together, you're going out together, you're going to meals together, you're going out drinking together or whatever after the show, or going to the big thing was go to the mall and watch the headliner buy stuff, because he was the only one that had the money to do it.
Right.
But yeah, it was a fascinating, and that's really what got me into this industry, because at the time in 2005, when I started in this business, they needed people who could stand up in front of people and talk and deliver a message. Mm-hmm. Well, I can do that. I didn't know all that much. I was faking it until I made it, right? So, right. But at least I could say it with confidence and stand up there. And plus, I started out at Jim Beam, so I had, I was working with Fred No and Jerry Dalton, and who was the master distiller at the time, and Fred, of course, master distiller, but also traveling as the ambassador. And back then, that's all that the ambassadors were the family members or actual distillers. So it was they were just starting to see an uptick in the sales for some of the small batch products in 2006. And that's where a little bit more profit is. So they invested, and with good luck and timing, as a comedian, good timing, right?
Uh-huh.
I hit the bourbon surge as it was exploding.
Yeah.
And then Fred No's picture was going on the side of the Jim Beam bottle as the 7th generation distiller. And he was going to be on a year-long worldwide tour promoting Jim Beam for that event, which is, awesome that his picture, got up there with all of his other family members, opened up the door for me and 2 other gentlemen to be the first ambassadors that weren't family members at Jim Beam. So no pressure. I didn't even think of it at the time. I was too dumb to be scared. So, it was just, it was a job. I needed health insurance. I was a comedian, and I got into this business, and it was fun. And as a comedian, I could write my own trainings and tastings, and I was doing my own thing. So they gave me a great leverage. And then in 2012, I came over to Heaven Hill, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. A real testament to how great of a person you are and how well respected you are within the industry is how the people at Beam talk about you to this day. You leave and you go to work for what is a competitor. I know it's a very friendly business, but ultimately it's a competitor, but they still talk about how great you were and they wish you were still here. And, and you're just a great guy. I mean, they go out of their way to talk about how great Bernie Lubbers is, which is really,
that's nice to hear. But, they're still my good friends. These are people that I also traveled with, and, we didn't live in the same condo and stuff, but when you're on the road, you're staying in the same hotels, and you're meeting up, and you're meeting for dinners, and you're helping each other along the way, and it is a family. The Bourbon family is a big family, and it's glad to hear that. And the world's, it's just like in the comedy world, you never downed another comic, you didn't down another brand, just like here in this business, I point out to people that Jack Daniels, which is a phenomenal brand. We all wish that we had a monster of a brand like Jack Daniels, but Jack Daniels outsells every bourbon combined.
Crazy to think about.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have to stick together. We have to pull together to grow our little bourbon world and rye world. I mean, rye is even less of a, Evan Williams outsells the entire rye category, for God's sake. Mm-hmm. So, it's something we all have to do. And I equate it to, in Napa Valley, you can't be, people aren't going to come see you with one winery.
Yep.
It takes,
true.
And in Kentucky, we can't just be the only destination for bourbon, right?
Yeah.
We're the number one. And there's more here, but we need excitement in other markets, like in Colorado. We need we need that excitement and people having that local, we got a local distillery, and I think it's great.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about your job. The last year has to be a challenge in doing what you're doing. Travel gets cut out and all those things that you're probably so used to. So tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you the last year.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I've been traveling 3 weeks a month, 2 to 5 days a week since 2005 with Bourbon. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was traveling 2 to 3 weeks a month doing comedy from 1985 to 2005. Yeah, I've been traveling a lot, and then all of a sudden I'm home. Right? Yeah. Well, I introduced myself to my kitchen, so I was starting to cook more and having friends. When it took a long time to have friends over. But still, we would trade recipes, and then when it was starting to open up, we get together and have little dinners and stuff. It was, Heaven Hill was awesome because they were just saying, work from home, and we're going to figure this out. And your job's going to be different than my job. We all had to individually figure it out, right? Yeah. Max Shapira, our owner and president, he's been with the company for 50 years. He goes to Bardstown every day, and from Louisville. And his office is there, and every day he had lunch in the employee cafeteria, and he would sit with the employees, and everyone knows Max, and he was just, it's a big thing for him to do that. He went to work in our Louisville offices every day. He had to figure it out, right? But then all of a sudden Zoom calls starting became a thing. And, and I don't see these going away, Steve. Do you? I mean, these kind of Zoom tastings,
I think,
because
yeah.
I mean,
think
because
there's a place for them. Yeah.
Places learning how to sell 2 ounce, where it's legal, 2 ounces or so, samples, and you can go to the liquor store or the restaurant and pick them up and then take them home, and don't have to worry about driving home. And it's also, if you're a distiller or an ambassador to come to your town, well, it takes a lot of, you got to fly there, you got to get a hotel. We're busy. We might not get everywhere, but hell, I can walk from the living room to the bar here, and I can do a Zoom tasting for you. So I think that's been going to be if you want to say a positive result of COVID. There's no positive results of COVID, but I think if we would have suggested to people to do a Zoom tasting before COVID, they would have told you to go to hell, right? They would have said, no, you're gonna come here, and we're gonna bring you here, right? Which is great. I love that. That's what I do. Yeah. But I think it's gonna be some sort of a hybrid world after this. But my world's been great, and thank God our company, is family owned, and we had that disastrous fire in 1996. They didn't lay off anybody then. They didn't lay off anybody here during this. Let's all figure it out together. Yeah. And we did. It was kind of fun.
Well, Bernie, you've got a great job, and people probably are envious of what you do. And this stuff, what you've done in your career doesn't happen by accident. I know you work very hard for everything that you've done to get to where you're at. But tell us a little bit about what's some of your favorite parts of your job. What's the stuff that you really enjoy?
Well, I love, of course, my favorite thing is bottle and bond, Steve. That's my big deal.
There it is.
Right?
There it is. Yeah.
And that's what I said back in 2006 when I was hired I wasn't hired at Jim Beam as an ambassador immediately. Of course, there wasn't such a thing.
Right.
I was doing events and promotions, and then once I got into it, then the opportunity presented itself, and good thing I was there. But I noticed that I'm not Parker Beam. I am not, an icon of the industry. I'm not Fred No. I'm not a member of one of the most prestigious distilling family in the history of the United States. They had stories, they had experiences, and I learned from that. And I just said, well, my father, who worked at Fall City Brewing Company, his company ring there, 45 years of service. And my grandfather was one of the founders of that brewery. He was 13 German saloon keepers that started that brewery in 1905. And then my father and my mother were both bourbon drinkers and beer drinkers, but but they kind of defaulted to bourbon. They had a couple beers, but here and there, but they liked their bourbon, Kentucky and all. And so I had experiences, and that's what I had in my act, was about my dad, who drank a quart of bourbon a day. That's what he told his doctor anyway, and he drank more than that, because you don't tell the doctor the truth. So he thought that, I'll just, slow roll this.
He'll dial it down. Yeah.
He landed on a quart. So, so I started telling a story about my father who drank a quart of bourbon a day. And then, my dad, my very first favorite bourbon that I ever, was on the road. Actually, I was in Drew Carey's little hometown, Parma, Ohio. Yeah. And I remember I was like, oh, I saw this bottle, and it was on the back bar of the comedy club. And I didn't, I didn't even know, I wasn't in the business. So in the bourbon business. So I didn't know that was kind of a regional brand. It was Old Granddad, that orange label, bottled in bond and bonded. And I'm like, I always, even growing up, I was always fascinated by that word bonded on a bottle. And here it is. It's kind of, made me, give me a little bit of a name in the industry. And I came home and I said, hey, Dad, I found a great bourbon. He goes, what's that? I said, Old Granddad, bottle and bond. He goes, oh, bottle and bond, son, that's good stuff. And that kind of thing, that hits your ear. Right. When your dad, who drinks a quart a day, says, oh, the bottle and bond, that's good stuff, son. You pay attention. And I was like, and then I started looking at the laws of it, because that's when I first started teaching, was words on labels, what whiskey meant, what bourbon meant, what rye meant, what straight meant, all that kind of stuff, and bottle and bond. And then I started the history. And it was the first consumer protection legislation in the United States. And I started getting sucked into this story. I'm like, that's going to be my story. This is going to be what I use to give me credibility in the industry to when I go places, I'm talking about something else that nobody, trust me, nobody was talking about Bottle and Bond in 2006. They were even saying, talking about this. We don't want you talking about Bottle and Bond, because Bottle and Bond's never going to be a 1 million case selling brand, right?
Right. Because
it's so restricted. It's only whiskey you can make in a 6-month period, and you have to feed your larger brands before you get down to this. So it's going to be the little part that goes in the funnel, not the big part. But, I was like, well, that's my hook. That's my hook. And they let me do it. And then when I came over, we have, a quarter of the Bottle and Bonds in the world. I was like, I'm home now. This is, here we are, and it's family owned. So Max wants to sell every barrel. He doesn't care if it's a 10,000 case selling brand or a 2 million case brand or a 50,000 case brand, fine. It's a great story. So, that I use Bottle and Bond to, I realized, he's a comedian and you're working for yourself, but you have to tell a club owner or a booker how funny you are and how good you are. That's hard to do. That's why most musicians and people who get to a certain level, they have managers and people like that do that for you. Right? Well, here I have the brands do that for me, right? I have the brands, and then I can tag along with the brands, right? And maybe get a little notoriety with the brands, perhaps here and there. It's not why you do it, but it's like, you have to have something when you're a nobody, right? to give yourself a little credibility, and that kind of did it for me in this industry. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it has to be so rewarding because now Bottle and Bond is one of the biggest things in bourbon. I mean, I bet you can't even keep up these. I know you used to have a time when you were collecting all of them. Now with all the craft coming out with their own Bottle and Bond, it's got to be almost impossible to keep up.
Yeah, here's my bar there. There's my Bottle and Bond section. I think every bar should have a Bottle and Bond section, right? Where they're all together. But you're right. But, I think there's around 40 now. And still with, with about 2,000 craft distillers and 10 major distillers, if we all make 2 brands each, that means there's 4,000 brands of American whiskey. There's around 40 Bottle and Bonds.
Yeah.
Wow. Why wouldn't you want every single one, right? That's my pitch. People, well, where do I start? They want to go for the hard to get ones right away. Well, why are you going to do that? That's a fool's errand, right? Go find something that's available and then find out why you like it and then expand out. So if you just bought every Bottle and Bond on the planet and then expand it out from there, you're going to go on a great journey.
Okay. A friend of ours here in Missouri, Woodhead Spirits, just released their first Bottle of Bond. I bet you don't have that one. I'm going to send you a bottle. If you don't have one,
I've never heard of it. Yeah. Well,
All right. I'm getting you a bottle, and I will send it your way next time I make it out there. That's
absolutely.
That way, and then I'll feel good. I'll be part of the collection.
There you go.
Yeah, that feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we asked you about the stuff you love. Is there any part of your job that's a downside? Anything that isn't fun or things that you don't like as much to do?
Not really. I mean, expense reports are kind of a drag.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But, but then again, you get to look at the receipts, places you went and you can remember that night. So it really actually turns out to be okay.
Okay.
It's just being away from home. And that's what's been kind of really cool to rekindle. And really, when friends of yours, they stop inviting you to parties and that because they know you're never going to go.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So, that can get frustrating when you physically had to be gone 2 to 5 days a week, 3 weeks a month, but it's part of it. That's one of the parts that I love, and part that's a downer sometimes is being gone and the wear and tear on your body. I mean, we have to admit, what we do. And I've seen so many people in the industry, they think this is the dream job, and it is a great dream, and it is a dream job.
Right.
But you have to respect this,
Yes.
And I've seen too many people this starts taking over a little bit. I have a rule. I don't drink at home unless I'm on a tasting or if I have people over. But other than that, I haven't drank at home since 2007, with that rule, because you can't do what we do for a living and then come home and drink,
right.
At the level that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because, I might start out the day at 10 o'clock in the morning at a distributor sales meeting and doing a tasting. And I might have 2 more tastings that afternoon. And then you go out to dinner and to a couple of accounts. Well, it starts to rack up.
Yeah.
And so do the pounds, right?
Yeah. So I assume you work with every kind of department in the company, right? When like a new brand's coming on, I guess you would touch base with marketing. I'm sure Connor you got to talk to, and
Well, it's
management.
interesting you say that. No one's ever really recognized that before, but yes, I mean, I work with every division and every part of the company, from the owners. You know, we have a strange thing being family owned and operated. I was in touch with two of our owners today, you know, and it's just, you know, very, very casual, very laid back. But yes, I work with communications and things like this, and working with the media. I work with Connor and the production team down at the Bernheim Distillery. I work with our sensory team, Mike and Chris and Tawny, who put together the single barrels and small batches. And sometimes I'm included in on those tastings. I work with the marketing department. And of course, I'm in the sales department, and my main job is to help them place and pull through the brands that are available to them, and just give them little lines and give them the, nothing like a PT Barnum, but, things that really are true that will help them sell the brand. Because it doesn't do a bar good or a store good if you just make a placement and it sits there. You have to get it in there and help pull it through. And that's part of what I do, is help them shine a light on what they can do, customers too.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Max Shapiro, because, it has to be so nice to work for a company where, the owner is so accessible. You're back when the pre-COVID days, you literally can walk in the lunchroom and see him every day. So tell us a little bit about the man himself, Max Shapiro.
Oh, Max is amazing. He is a true icon of the industry. Names like Sidney Frank and Sam and Edgar Bronfman, Max's name is right up there with those folks. He is, his father and 4 uncles started this company 85 years ago. They bought 200 acres of land, which was the William Heavenhill property. And his dad, Ed, had to learn the business because he owned department stores. And then when Max started with the company, I believe it was in 76. Yes, 71. This is his 50th year. His dad and he put Max's desk next to his desk, and they were side by side. And he wanted them to hear on the telephone how he dealt with distributors and customers, little things that would take, you can't teach, but he just kind of absorbed it in over the years. And so really, really neat. He gets every single part of the business. If you ask an owner or a president to how to put the bottle or a label together, they would call the marketing department, right?
Right.
Max has done that. Max designed the original Elijah Craig bottle and the label. He designed that. Huh. He designed the old Henry McKenna with the felt on it, with the little thing in there. And even though it was an expensive, kind of clunky bottle to put together, he loved that bottle because it looked different. And he loves the Elijah Craig because he says, from across the room, Bernie, you can read it's Elijah Craig. It says it real big. He says, I like that. And we kept that when we changed the bottle. And we were very careful because that was Max's design. You can't say that about a lot of owners and presidents of companies, that they know how to make a table tent or they know how to make a case card. He's done it. He was the only salesperson for Heaven Hill for many years. And then he was the marketing director for the bourbons and all of them. He's just an amazing man who has a lot of insight. He bought a little brand, Burnett's Gin, years in the 70s, and then he's like, I think it'd be good to expand that into a vodka. And now it's Burnett's Vodka. It's one of the top 5 selling brands in the United States. And he's not afraid to do acquisitions. We purchased Deep Eddy Vodka several years ago. That's a big purchase. That's something he saw that Constellation was, selling off some brands, because they're in the cannabis business, and it's kind of they've had to sell some brands off because that's a long play. And so he said, they're not talking about Black Velvet. That's a couple 3 million cases.
Uh-huh.
How come they're not talking about Black Velvet? So he picks the phone up and goes, you want to sell it? Next thing you know, we own it, So, and it fits perfectly into our portfolio. And it just, he has this insight that some people can't see and something you can't teach. But I guess sitting next to his father for the first few decades of his career, just an amazing, he knows every aspect of the bourbon industry and the spirits industry.
Nice. I've got a two-part question about your portfolio. I mean, obviously Heaven Hills has a huge portfolio, and I know you probably drink across the board, drinking all of them. Is there one that is your go-to that you find yourself gravitating to more than the others?
Bourbons from
Yes.
here?
Yeah.
Well, my house bourbon, as you can see right back here, that's an elliptical pourer. Okay.
Mhm.
That's a Heaven Hill 6-year 90 proof. That's what my dad drank a quart of every day.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so that's kind of my house go-to. Again, I don't drink at home much. So when I do these tastings, that's kind of what I go to. And, I just love it. We still have it here in Kentucky. It is a Kentucky only product. So you talk about rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that's more rare than Pappy Van Winkle. You can only get it in one state, right?
Right.
Right. I mean, hey, we have another brand called Old Fitzgerald Prime. It's a gold label. It's the 4-year-old 80 proof product, but because it's only sold in Kentucky, it's really awesome. It's one of those under the radar. If you come in from out of state, for less than $15 a bottle, it's pretty crazy. You take it back to your home market and you go, it's like a brick of gold. Hey, look what I found in Kentucky. You can only get it in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that I love. But of course, I'm big on the bottle and bonds. So our up and down our bottle and bond, that's kind of where I drive into. But if I had a desert island, right?
Yes.
Henry McKenna has always been my favorite whiskey. When I blind tasted through the portfolio, I didn't even know it was bottle and bond at the time when I first started the company. I was like, man, I love this. Of course, that's not really a big surprise because I was on the Knob Creek team at Beam. And so that was 9 years old and 100 proof. And this is 10 years old and 100 proof. So, but my desert island bourbon would probably be Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Elijah Craig. Okay. And you answered my second part 2 was going to be, what are some hidden gems? But you covered that in the answer. So perfect, Bernie. That's how good you are.
I read your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. McNew, I'm going to let you ask. McNew shot me a quick direct message question, and I'll let you ask.
Yeah, so you were showing off your house bourbon. We talked about this on my show, but the glass you're drinking out of, I think our audience would love to know about it too.
Oh, there you go. Well, a friend of mine that I went to grade school with, I went to Catholic grade school. So you go to 8 years of school and grade school with them. But he was an antique dealer and he found this glass. Mm-hmm. And this is a Roosevelt Hotel, New Orleans. This is a glass from the 1940s. Wow. And it is just for me, it's my perfect tasting glass. I only have one of them. So, but I just love tasting out of this glass. And just imagine, during World War I, who was drinking out of this glass, in New Orleans, and through the years, it's just pretty interesting. So thanks, McNew. It's just a cool little thing. I like little stuff like that.
In one little glass. It's a cool story.
Yeah, it is. So Bernie, you have a new song. You're also a musician, amongst other things, so talented. Is there any way we could get you to play a little bit of that song or play the whole thing for us?
Absolutely. During COVID, we were locked down. Mm-hmm. And so I did, I wrote a couple songs, but this one, I tell the story of bourbon and I bring it alive with live bluegrass music and Kentucky music from folks like Merle Travis and Bill Monroe and Flat Scruggs and Grandpa Jones and all that. But this song is a song that I wrote. I told you about my mom and dad both drank bourbon. And, when I here in Kentucky and maybe all over the country, I've heard a lot of people, and they call them different things, a toddy or whatever. But when we got sick, my mom would always make up whiskey, honey, and lemon. Mm-hmm. And so even when we were little kids, which is basically cough syrup, so, True. There's alcohol and cough syrup, and Vicks Formula 44D. I'm sure it's got an ABV in there, right? Yeah. So, so I thought about that and I was like, man, that's whiskey, honey, and lemon. That just sounds like a song, right? So here's my little twist on it.
Okay.
When I was growing up and I wasn't feeling well, my mom would do what lots of moms did then. She'd kiss me lightly on the forehead, but she didn't go and grab the aspirin. She'd mix some whiskey, honey, and love, and a kiss on my forehead and my cheek. Spoonful of whiskey, honey, and love, and a second dose so I could fall asleep. Sweet mama, she is gone, but I still get sick from time to time. But I will not spend one dime at the drugstore, so just like her instead, I'll mix up whiskey, honey, and lovin'. I miss those kisses on my forehead and my cheek, but I feel better there right quick with each and every sip. Her love's right there in the recipe. So Colonel McNew, next time you're not feeling very well, get you some whiskey, honey, and love, and get you some kisses on your forehead and your cheek. You'll feel better there right quick with each and every sip. Her love's right there in the recipe. Mom's love's right there in the recipe.
Yeah. Right. Woo. That is great, Bernie.
Amazing.
Really appreciate it. Amazing. You've exceeded our expectations. Anything you want to talk about, share, plug for the company, anything like that?
Oh, we're working really hard on our website, heavenhilldistillery.com, all one word. There's fascinating stuff. I mean, we got time-lapse photography of a rick house being built. If you've never seen how a rick house is built, you can see. It's just amazing how the Busick company does that. We have a lot of great information about all of our recipes are on there. We're very, very transparent. I think we're the only distillery that shares everything with you. And if there's something that you can learn a lot, not just from our company, but from the whole about how bourbon's made and all that. Really cool. Big news today, Steve, on April 1st, and it's not an April Fool's joke. Mellow Corn has an Instagram account. How about that? Oh, my God.
I'm following it. That sounds good. I love Mellow Corn.
The Cult of Corn has an Instagram account. So check out those two things. And then I have my own website, whiskeyprof.com, like whiskey professor. Whiskey with an E, whiskeyprof.com. Thanks so much. Thanks
all right, Bernie, thank you so much. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll keep you around. And of course, you can sit through our next interview and then answer some questions for the fans afterwards. Mm-hmm. All right. With that, McNew, we'll take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll talk to Lenny.
Perfect. Today's show is sponsored by Virtual Bourbon, the Zoom series of the ABV Network. Each week, we facilitate 1 to 4 live events featuring tastings, interviews, and bourbon history. Learn more or get signed up by searching Steve Akley on Eventbrite, or check out our events under Virtual Bourbon at abvnetwork.com. We are also sponsored by Moonshine University. Moonshine University offers programs to assist individuals in the bourbon industry or simply fans wanting to step up their knowledge. Whether you are looking for in-person learning at the classrooms of Moonshine University or looking for self-study online, there are options to fit your unique needs. Check them out at moonshineuniversity.com.
All right. Our next guest owns Deerhammer Distilling. He's a Philadelphia transplant living in Buena Vista, Colorado with his wife, Amy, and his son, Arlo. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Lenny Eckstein. Hey, Lenny, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Good to be with you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see some backgrounds going up of
yes.
Lenny. It's kind of our own little cult we've got. We have the marinated Lenny photo that was captured by Dave there. So yes, that was during a visit he had to your distillery. So that was pretty cool.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. There's some flying knee action as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You're crushing some corn there. So yeah.
Yes.
I like that video today, by the way. That was
thank you.
That was nice. So if you don't mind, you were just on a trip to Florida. Tell us a little bit about what you had going on there, man.
Oh yeah. Well, like all the COVID stuff was going on this year, and I feel like we made the best of it. But as maybe it's winding down. I wanted to get my folks out of town. They were kind of burned out, so I took them to hang out with the spring breakers in Florida. And it was awesome. We had a good time. I'm from Philadelphia. My folks, we lived in the same house my whole life.
Yep.
And when they found out that they were going to have a grandkid, they moved out here to Colorado. So we lived just 30 minutes down the road.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I see them here and there, but it was a lot of time to spend with them. And they're great folks. Something that I found pretty awesome on the trip was I've always known this about my mom. She has propensity to mispronounce common words, even like uncommon words that are phonetically obvious. And she's on paper, she's a very educated woman. She's super sharp. But I started on this trip jotting down all of the instances of the words you pronounced wrong. And I kind of want to bounce them off you guys. I've been sitting on this, like it's something I wanted to share. So,
Okay.
so I got this idea. Let me bounce them off you, and maybe I'll give you the correct pronunciation. And I'd love to like call on you folks who are here with us to maybe guess how my mom pronounced the word wrong.
Okay.
If you guess it right, I'm going to sling you a Deerhammer hat.
That's nice. I love that hat. That's a good hat. I've got one of those. I do wear that. So the concept is you're going to say it correctly, how it should be said. But
Yes.
their job is to try to guess how your mother said it incorrectly. Okay. I'm in tune. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So some of them are common language words. Others are brands. I'm going to start with a brand, and that would be Uber. And Steve, since you're to the left of my screen, I'm going to go with you. How do you think Lenny's mom says Uber?
Oh, you should just do the audience, though, right?
Oh, all right. I'll skip over.
Yeah, I don't want to take any prizes from potential audience members.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
To the right, then, the Ewalds.
I'm going to go with Uber.
There's two of you, so let's get two guesses.
Hubert.
Spot on.
No.
Very French. Yeah, exactly.
Hubert.
Yes.
Okay.
Should we take a Hubert to the airport? Is what I got.
Okay.
So I wrote that one down. That was a good one. Yeah.
Justine, if you could write these down for us so we don't forget, and then I'll get the addresses to Lenny. So
Hubert, that's great.
Hubert.
Yeah. Most of these are brands, I guess I wrote down, but the list is insanely long. If I had started tracking earlier, I'm gonna go with another one. This is a product, a beverage product, kombucha. And Bill, you're next to my screen. So how did my mom say kombucha?
Kombucha? I don't know.
Yes, you guys are awesome. You nailed it. Kombucha. Yes, in the grocery store. Do you drink kombucha? God damn it, Mom. Awesome. All right, well, we're crushing. Next one. Google. Tim, you're next on the list. How does my mom say Google? Brooklyn, Jewish, by the way. So
I was about to say, because I knew you're East Coast ex. Google.
You're close. Google.
Yeah, the O's. Yep.
Yeah.
Google. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up. And the list goes on forever. I like this one. This is another brand. Bernie, you're next on my screen, so why not? It's both a brand and a pepper. Chipotle.
Chipotle.
Chipui.
Chipui.
Chipui. You gotta be kidding me, Mom.
Wasn't that on Family Guy? Chipui.
It might have been. This is what I deal with, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
Chipotle makes sense. I know some parents do chipotle.
I could see that. I could see. I don't.
Chipuli?
I don't know. It's like the artist that does the glass work. Choluli.
So,
it kind of sounds like that.
Yeah. I mean, great spring break trip, but the ongoing comedy relief for me to continuously jot down this ridiculousness.
Yeah.
So
West Philadelphia, you're born and raised. Playground is where you spend most of your days. How do you end up in Buena Vista, Colorado?
Oh man. Well, I love Philadelphia. I think it's a phenomenal city, and
you never go there anymore.
Well, I go there here very, very, not so often, especially these days. I don't know. I mean, it was a bit of a, what's next kind of thing. I find that to be a pattern. I don't know. I was in my 20s. I finished up art school. I was looking for an adventure of sorts, and I found my way to Colorado. At the time, a lot of it was about snowboarding, and I was a graphic designer. I could work anywhere. I think I just found my way to the mountains and knew pretty quickly that this was the place I wanted to be. I was all about, at the time, snowboarding, as mentioned. The craft beer scene was booming. I was getting back into the water and running rivers and kayaks, and just trying to really enjoy myself, find experiences and be part of them, and ultimately find something that was going to be my own product, because graphic design is cool. I had a great time doing it. I was pretty good at it, but ultimately you're just making ones and zeros on the screen to make imagery, and I wanted something real and tangible, and beer really held my grasp for a long time, and I started moving towards like a lot of craft distillers. I got into the craft beer side of things, I should say homebrew craft side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was brewing a preposterous amount of beer at home. Almost moved into the, semi-pro beer side of things, working at a brewery in Golden, Colorado, not Coors. And, while I was doing a shift to decide if I wanted to do it, at the time, their assistant distiller who was departing kind of made known to me how, I hate to say simple, but how if one knows how to brew beer, how the next step of distilling isn't that big of a step. And my mind was blown. And, that was the beginning of Deerhammer in that very moment, really.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're a graphic artist by trade. What kind of stuff was your specialty? Did you ever work on anything that we would know about, or what kind of stuff did you do?
Oh, man. I've probably forgotten 90% of it, but early on, it was a lot of commercial brand stuff, nothing all that glamorous, but early on I worked for Comcast. So when they were launching high-speed internet, I was early on the website thing. So a lot of user experience, interface design, based in Philadelphia. There were a lot of pharmaceutical companies in Delaware. So there was that. God, I'm trying to think what was fun that I did. It wasn't, I'm sure there was some really fun stuff, but all in all, it was really a lot of brand stuff, a lot of stuff in the tech industry and user interface design. And I really didn't have the opportunity to do a ton of print design or packaging design until Deerhammer came to be. And that's been a nice component that, I've been able to work on our labels anytime. I don't know if folks here are familiar with it, but anytime a distillery needs to is coming up with a new brand, they need to submit a label to the government for TTB, what's called COLA approval. And what's nice is I can submit that label and inevitably you get a rejection every time. And inevitably for that TTB reviewer, they're going to get a revision within 3 minutes from me because I'm going to keep changing it.
You don't have to go out. Yeah.
No. So they'll get 10 bounce backs a day and I get 10 rejections, but I'm going to keep going until they cave. So that's one of the upsides of being a graphic designer in the craft distilling industry.
That's cool. And your son Arlo is what, 7 years old?
He is 7. Yeah, we were just hanging out earlier.
And I know that he took a liking to the show about making knives on TV, and then you guys kind of got into it a little bit. So tell us about that hobby, making knives.
Yeah, well, he definitely was the impetus for that. I've always loved knives. I was thinking about that, and I don't know. I like cutting things, and I've always liked knives and blades, and just the concept of something sharp and pointy. And it kind of timed out around COVID stuff, and I find that I like hobbies. I like to latch onto something and dive in deep. And he got me into this concept of maybe we can make knives at home, and I went full in. So. Kind of on the corner of our rack house, actually just below me here, we've got like a little knife shop. We open up the overhead door and, hammer out some steel. He comes up with some pretty kooky ideas, which is awesome. Because in my mind, I'll make a pocket everyday carry style knife. Mm-hmm. He wants like a circular Chinese star or some kind of battle axe, a harpoon. So, I'm all about it. So I'll pick him up from school. We'll come back to the rack house, open the door, wheel the forge out, and hammer some ideas out. He'll draw up some concepts, and I'll try to make them the best I can. And I don't know. I feel like it's a good thing for a kid to know if there's ever a zombie apocalypse or something.
It's always good when you can find common ground with your child. So it's something that you both like. It's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, it's either that or Nintendo, and I've always tried to steer clear of games just like heroin. So,
yeah. So is show and tell still a thing? Is he like trying to take his knives to be like, look what me and my dad made?
Yeah, it is, and I fear that he will. I've instilled in him that is the exact wrong thing to do. Don't do that. Like all bad things will ensue. But what we do to avoid that is we'll make like little like pendants and things, so little mini axes or spikes and cool. That kind of he brings
kind of stuff he can show off. So yeah.
I'm not saying he can't stab someone with those, but he hasn't yet. Yeah.
So where do you come up with the name Deerhammer? As you're starting this thing, you were making some beer, and then you're like, get into distilling. Then you're like, I'm going to make a company here. Where does Deerhammer come from?
Well, certainly you've heard of Alcina Deerhammer before, I assume.
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay. Well, not shocking. The small town of Buena Vista, Colorado, currently, I believe we're at about a population of 2,800.
Okay.
One of the original residents was Alcina Deerhammer. And by legend, she was a bit of a character and had a lot to do with the town's founding. And we just, in looking through the history of this town and really loving this place, having always come here to camp in the summer and whitewater kayak and mountain bike. And, we could have put a distillery anywhere, I suppose, because it doesn't matter where you make the booze, it's where you ship it. We're kind of smack in the middle of Colorado in a really cool river valley. The Arkansas River headwaters are just upstream of us. We're surrounded by a ton of 14,000-foot peaks. And we wanted to pay homage to the history of the town that we love so much. So we kind of looked at this historic figure that was part of town and thought, cool last name. Plus, the town is overrun by deer. So, kind of the duality of that just all made sense. And Deerhammer it was.
Oh, yeah, it certainly stands out. You don't forget it. It's one of those things. Yeah, you hear the name, you definitely don't forget it. So talk to us a little bit about your distillery, where you're at now. You've been doing it a while. So tell us a little bit about where you're at with your products now versus where you're going in the future, that type of thing.
Yeah, we have been doing it for a while, I suppose. I mean, in the scheme of things, relatively, we founded Deerhammer in 2010, Amy and I. And so it's been a stretch. Our intention from day one was really kind of based on my background in beer, and American single malt was a natural transition. And, I've expressed before in the past, I didn't know if American single malt was going to be a thing. And I wouldn't say it's a thing the way bourbon is. But at the time, I wanted to go all in with American single malt. And I knew all along that we would make other American whiskeys as well. It was a few years in, and my wife was kind of wondering if I was right. And she asked me, she's like, "Are you sure American single malt is going to work?" To which I replied, "No. I'm not sure."
Right.
We'll see. I'm rolling these dice. And, it's been a while. And what I really enjoy about having started with American single malt is that we're in craft whiskey. And there's no point of replicating what the big brands have done so well for so long, as everyone knows. So what's our niche and where's our flavor profile? American single malt is something that we have the opportunity to place our unique thumbprint on. As other makers are making it and pushing it out there, we're doing our own thing. And I borrow a lot of historic brewing traditions with regards to grain selection and fermentation, historic distilling traditions with regards to, true pot still distillation, direct fire for the first 6 years, open fermentation, long fermentations, all these processes to try to make something that's ours, that has a Deerhammer DNA to it. And we feel that, 10 years in, we're starting to kind of hit that stride. I mean, it takes a while, and we're still certainly young. I think of Deerhammer as kind of second generation in Colorado craft distilling. Our American single malt is what we hang our hat on, but over 10 years in now, we're starting to find our stride and our flavor of where we're trying to go with this. And now, in addition to American single malt, we've got everything we claim as a minimum age statement of 2 years, but really everything's 3 years now. And we're it's nice as a fairly small. But in addition to American single malt, we've got a 4-grain bourbon. We've got what we call our pot still rye, which is a pretty unique expression. We've got our hickory smoked corn whiskey. We do a Dutch style gin as a bit of a side project. We do brandy here and there. And 10 years in, it takes a while. We could come up with a grain bill, and we're always trying to be left of center. And you can take that taste the new make right off the still, which we do. The Ewalds have. And I would invite anyone to come visit us. And if our stills are running, you're welcome to taste it. But you can't always tell from flavor how it's going to be. It takes, in my estimation, it's really minimum 2 years. You start to get an indication early. So, at 10 years, we're finally finding our stride. Our bourbon took a while. We're happy with what we have now, but we're really happy with what's coming to be in terms of, we've experimented with yeast a lot. You hear a lot of talk about proprietary yeast, and that's cool. I don't know. Maybe it's the brewing side where everything's very sanitized and stringent, but we've experimented with no less than 10 yeasts, certainly more than that, but probably lost track. The main ones we've used in the past, USW6 is a prominent bourbon yeast that a lot of folks use in this country. Big distilleries use it, small ones. We used that for years. And about 2 years ago, we decided, let's mix it up. Let's see what's out there. We started messing around with Fermentis, a new strain that they had, D53, which is a super high ester producing yeast. And we go after big flavor. Deerhammer is known for, we want to be known for anyway, and we try our best to be known for big flavor, long finishes, like distinctly different. And I think yeast that is not so clean and neutral, but big in ester formation is kind of what we've been after. So D53 was something we tried. And then ultimately we came around to Fermentis M1 yeast, which is a very predominant strain throughout Scotland. And this is something that a few years back we started using in our bourbon. And now that we're about 2 years in, we're seeing the results. And I love this stuff. I mean, like, I think now we're really hitting our stride with 2 year, and that stuff's going to hit 3 to 4 years soon enough. But something I want to kind of throw out to you guys. We've got our, let's see, last year's bourbon production. We make a 4-grain bourbon, and we split it. We used M1 yeast, but we split the grain bill a bit. It's 4-grain. We use Ute Mountain corn, wheat, oats, and dark roast malt barley. And something I was thinking that'd be fun since I have you guys all here. I certainly can't share bourbon through the screen. That would be awesome. But I'd like to send you all some samples. I'm thinking a sample of each. And the grain bill is as follows. It's 60% Ute Mountain corn, 25% either wheat or oats, 10% either wheat or oats, respectively. One is high oat, one is high wheat, and 5% dark roast malt barley. Now, this is something that myself and my other distiller were mulling over yesterday. And I think I know what I want to do, but I'm going to send you guys each a sample if you're cool with it. And if you're so inclined, I'd love to have your opinion on what should be our 2021 bourbon grain bill, and possibly ongoing our final bourbon grain bill for the rest of Deerhammer's existence.
That's a great example of what it's like to be hanging out in the studio here as we're doing the Bourbon Talk Show, my friend. That is very cool. So we'll get you all those addresses and you can send them out, and I'm sure everybody'd like to do that. But part of the deal, though, folks, is he's looking for feedback. So if you don't mind, try it, and we'll give you an email where you can send some feedback into Lenny and he can check it out. That's cool.
Yeah. And I would throw out there, try one, try the other, and then try 50-50 split. See what you think. I'd love your votes, because we'll definitely take those into account as we're about to fire up bourbon production.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, you're not in Kentucky. You're not even in Denver. You're in Buena Vista. So tell us a little bit about the visitor experience, because we want to encourage people to get there. If you are coming through Denver, make the trek to Buena Vista. So tell them a little bit about what it's like going there.
Yeah, well, Denver, awesome city. It's small. It reminds me a lot, or Louisville reminds me a lot of Denver in certain ways, although certainly not the bourbon presence. Buena Vista is a 2-hour drive. We're southwest. There are a ton of distilleries out there that you could certainly make a trip out of. There's the Colorado Spirits Trail that you can reference for a pretty epic trip through back roads and really cool small distilleries. But ultimately, straight shot, we're about 2 hours from Denver. It's a gorgeous drive. And once you get here, COVID and kind of shutting things down a little bit got us thinking a lot about what we're all about and why we do what we do. And what it comes down to for us is we make our whiskey and our bourbon. We make it all for the experience. It's not, like when you look at the bottle of, in this case, 7-year-old Deerhammer single malt, that's great, but it's just brown stuff in a bottle. What we want are folks sharing it on the patio of our distillery, or taking it down the river and passing the bottle around after they get off the river. The big experiences. And we've thought a lot with this downtime, and we're definitely bolstering our tour. And while we're a very small distillery, it's definitely a fun experience. We're working on a barrel rack house where I am right now. We're going to do a once a week barrel rack house tasting experience all summer. So, if folks come out here, I'd say, come on out, camp, stay in a hotel, maybe stay next to the rack house if you hit me up. We've got some guest accommodations, but it's a really cool chunk of Colorado that's, I'd say, the last great mountain town, because that's a little cliche, but it kind of is, like you've got the Vales and Aspens and Steamboats and Breckenridges. Those are great spots, but BV, Buena Vista, this is where it's at. It's a really cool spot, and I'd love to have anyone come out and visit, be it you folks who I'd love to hear from if you're coming out, or anyone that listens to this. Hit me up, Lenny@Deerhammer.com. I'd love to show you around, sip from barrels right out of straws, as the Ewalds are familiar with.
All right, my friend, as we wrap this up, where can people find your products? Maybe they want to buy them. Are they available Colorado only? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we are predominantly Colorado. It's something that we've been trying to build up enough inventory or barrel stores to really branch out a bit. We're for sure Colorado. We're a little bit California, a little bit Florida, but new development. There's some cool things starting to happen within the industry where, without boring you about the whole 3-tier system, we're working towards a system where all of our products can be ordered online directly from our website, ultimately shipped from liquor stores around the country. But within the next few weeks, we anticipate anyone can go to Deerhammer.com and order just about any product shipped to your door. And anyone listening to this, hit me up. I can float you a discount code to try to cover shipping, because that's a bummer. But yeah, we can make it happen. I'd love everyone to try our stuff. We're really proud of it.
Absolutely. Last question I got for you, as they're buying those new products and things like that, I'm going on one of your labels. Your
That's
labels,
right.
Tell the audience.
Oh, I should have. Yeah. So we've got what's that one here? Yeah, we've got a product offering. It's our hickory smoked corn whiskey. It's a really neat whiskey.
I love that whiskey. Yeah.
And I mean, inspired by mellow corn, amongst others. I love the category. It's there's a bottle. It's 100% corn. It's made with Ute mountain corn, grown here in Colorado, down near the Four Corners area. It's a food grade corn, so it's got a ton of flavor in itself. And we built our own smoker to smoke that corn. So we do that. We sour mash. We open ferment for 4 days, double pot distill on direct fire, and then we mature in ex-bourbon barrels for anywhere from 1 year to 4 years. It varies, because barrel to barrel, used barrels are different. Something we've done that's kind of fun on the label, there's imagery of a deer in fisticuffs going to box someone opposing, and that someone is varied. It's been our previous sales rep. It's been a buddy of ours from Canada, and the latest addition is Steve Akley himself.
The Colonel on the label, boxing a kangaroo.
Yes.
Very cool.
So that's a pretty cool one.
Yes. I'm excited about that and can't wait to get a bottle of that myself. So that should be good stuff. Well, Lenny, my friend, thanks so much for joining us on the Bourbon Talk Show, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
This was great. Very good. Very good. All right, McNew, we'll wrap it up by talking about where people can find us. Where can people find you out there?
I am on Instagram at McNew ABV. Also check out the ABV Network or the ABV channel, wherever you get podcasts. I'm on there too.
All right. Yes. ABV Network channel. Yeah. Check that out. That's a regular podcast. It's got several shows on there. So for me, I'm an easy guy to find at Steve Akley on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. I've got a website, steveakley.com. The important website, though, is abvnetwork.com, because everything that we do is out there. Previous shows, blogs, so much more. abvnetwork.com. And of course, Bourbon Sasquatch on YouTube. McNew, anything else to say before we get out of here?
I'd like to remind the audience to please hit the subscribe button for Bourbon Sasquatch on YouTube, where all of our shows will be posted. When you are watching an episode, please give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, and share it. It helps new people find the show, which is very important to us. And next week, we'll have Freddie No of Jim Beam and Royce Neely of Neely Family Distillery.
All right. See you next week, gang. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for having us. Cheers. Stay bonded.
Stay bonded.